Welcome back, guys. Today we have another data mine. This is the event that they released and announced during the EN anniversary stream. Thanks to everyone that showed up for that. Tessa and I had a lot of fun. So today we're going to be revealing the Windborne Steel Wings event, which is a Wild West themed event that they announced for this anniversary stream. As this update is our 6th anniversary event as well, we get a couple things associated with that. One being the annual gem reset, as well as a wishing well, as well as a logging campaign that is going to have access to Pola or Sovietskaya Russia, which gives you access to those Russian or Italian ships for PR7 if you need them. Also, nothing else like an anniversary reward kit that includes things like 700 gems and a promise ring for free. Speaking of promise ring, this is going to bring a brand new O skin that's going to be Anchorage, so that's cool, finally getting more of those. And if you don't remember, during the last maintenance for the Prelude, they released a double ring kit available for purchase. And speaking of minor event housekeeping, U-96 got an augment module during the last update, and that was actually pretty good, putting her as one of the top submarines in the game. So let's talk about this event. As I said before, it's a Wild West event, which is really cool to me. So we're going to have the Saloon Dorm theme to match, as well as gear skins such as a lasso, so I think those are interesting. Of course, many of you are probably thinking about the Cowboy Ship Girl skins that are coming as well. Those are not all of the skins. There are some other skins associated too, including an FDG L2D skin specially requested for you guys. The event itself is going to look pretty standard. This is, of course, an EN anniversary. The Japanese anniversary is in a month, which will have a UR Gotcha ship in it. So we don't have one of those today, or do we? We are going to get a UR ship today. It's just not going to be in the Gotcha. What do I mean by that? We are actually getting a retrofit to Eldridge, and that will make her UR. So let's take a look at that retrofit first. So as with all retrofits, she's going to get a stat boost, and even with that, she's not going to be able to get over 2000 HP, still very squishy. However, she has some notable offensive capabilities. Her firepower is going up a ton, and she's getting a significant increase in her main gun efficiency. She'll also be getting some niche upgrades that will be super helpful in late game PvE world content. This includes a special Ghost ASW weapon that she gets at Limit Break 3 after retrofit for all of those late world pesky subs. And in addition to 60 anti-air stats added to her, she gets a anti-air gun +1, so she actually becomes an anti-airship now. Great for late worlds as well. They love planes and subs. So with all those stat upgrades out of the way, let's move on to the skills. First things first is she's upgrading one of the most broken skills in the game, Operation Rainbow, and it starts off with just this flat 10% speed boost. Love it. Additionally, when it triggers, which is not going to be that often, she's going to fire a special barrage, and while that will help with damage, if anything, it's going to help you just notice that it triggered better. She's also, as part of this retrofit, adding a second skill that's going to give her a flat 25% anti-air stat boost, and gives her a barrage that triggers anytime the flagship launches an attack. That includes an airstrike or a main gun, so that means like Kearsarge, you'd get to trigger it twice. It launches a special electric attack, which is obviously part of her theme. This has a 5-second cooldown, but any enemy hit by this attack is slowed by 60% for 2 seconds, so she gets a slow, which is great. It's based off flagship timing, so you can play with all the barrages and preloads that you want. There is a cooldown there, but 5 seconds isn't too bad. This is great. If only she was actually a Russian ship and could be used with Admiral Nakimov. Overall, Eldridge looks great. Not exactly the direction I thought they were going, but they gave her anti-submarine stuff. They gave her a bunch of extra damage. They gave her speed. They gave her extra barrage that includes a slow. And of course, now she is an anti-air queen. She's going to be very useful in late worlds. She should be easy to obtain. Good retrofit. ALM approved. Before we get into any actual new ships, though, we have to talk about other upgrades, which include PR6 Fate Simulation dropping today. So let's start off with Flandre. I just ripped into her during the last review that I had on PR6. And look at this, they removed the HP restriction. Saw this coming from a mile away. This was something that was unnecessary, so they removed it if you get all these extra prints. It also enhances the barrage, a little bit extra damage. Flandre is still Flandre, not that exciting. Moving on, we have Felix. And guess what? It also removes the enemy HP restriction. Man, that's great. The Fate Simulations just like remove the restrictions. It also increases the buff that she gives for crit rate and crit damage to 15 and 30% respectively. That's nice. And if you do equip her with a light cruiser main gun, she's going to trigger not only every 10 seconds, but she's going to trigger at the start of the battle, 3 seconds after the start actually. So she gets some extra barrages if you put her with a light cruiser main gun. Overall, going to help with a bunch of her damage, but she was used for survivability. Not a big deal. Not going to really change people who use her, but she's still good. Shimato, on the other hand, gets a really nice upgrade here. Shimato is obviously, of the PRs, not including the DRs, was probably the best ship. Very exciting. And she gets a great upgrade here. So first of all, she's going to get a slot efficiency for her first weapon by 15%. She's also no longer going to be restricted to using that one gun that she has. You might still want to use it for anti-air purposes, but you don't have to anymore. Love that. Also, she's going to heal the lowest HP ship, which is great because it's going to heal herself, but it's also going to heal another ship when she procs her skill. That's great, and it is any ship, so it could be a backliner if you need it. Fantastic. She gets a much better heal, and then she's also going to generate these shields that's going to block shells, 6 shells for one shield, and then a second shield that's going to block 2 torpedoes. They last for 10 seconds. This is on top of the damage reduction that she gets, so she definitely got a great upgrade here. She was the winner coming in from PR6, and after Fate Simulation a year later, she's definitely the winner. Of course, the DRs are a whole different story, but as far as PRs go, Shimato is definitely the best PR6 ship, and that didn't change from my review. Great. Shimato gets a nice upgrade here, though. And with that out of the way, we can finally get into the new event ships. So let's start off with the lead ship on the banner, the battleship USS Indiana. And stat-wise, she looks very similar to her sister, South Dakota. That's not a dig. South Dakota had great stats, especially when she came out, but it is a little bit old. It is an SR-based ship, but nothing really sad here. Of course, we're not going to be comparing it to something like a UR battleship, but for an SR battleship, very solid. Skill number 1 gives her a flat 15% boost to her firepower. Great. Also, when she fires her main gun, she triggers a special barrage. When the ship's main gun shots or skill number 2's shells hit an enemy, so we'll have to come back after we reach skill number 2, it's going to give an enemy a combo mark. Each stack increases the enemy's firepower damage taken from this ship by 5%. That max stacks 4 times for a 20% overall boost. I got very excited with the firepower damage taken boost, but it says from this ship instead of all forms of firepower-based damage. Also, 30 seconds after this battle, or the first time the enemy has 4 stacks, which, because it's based on the main gun fire, probably won't be from just the main gun fire, but we'll have to look in how skill number 2 works. But anyway, if you stack it 4 times, you trigger another special barrage, and every 30 seconds after the first trigger, you trigger that same barrage. That's really cool because you actually can time it the way that you need it. You can be like, hey, if we do this special thing, we can get the stacks at this special second mark, and then we know where all of the rest of the triggers are. I like the skill. Very simple. It's a barrage battleship in its essence, but they made it unique and cool. And let's move on to skill number 2. She gets plus 15% anti-air and minus 15% damage taken. Wow, these are just like straight buffs that are good. They're sizable. 15% is great, and they're in things that she wants. Like, she's gonna be very tanky, and South Dakota was already pretty tanky. For an SR battleship, this is gonna be one of the more tanky ones. Also, 5 seconds after firing her main gun, she generates a shield that blocks 3 shells from the leading vanguard that lasts 2 seconds. When it is broken or expires, so you're guaranteed to get it within the first 2 seconds, she's going to fire a level 10 special shell. So basically, she's like shooting a clap back. Awesome, and it is going to protect your vanguard, so she's tanky herself, but she's going to protect your vanguard. 1.5 seconds after the special shell is fired, so this is theoretically, you're waiting 5 seconds for her main gun, then you have a shield that lasts for 2 seconds, pretend that it goes totally to expire, then 1.5 seconds after that. So this is 8.5 seconds after the main gun fires, at least at its maximum. She's going to regenerate a shield, and she can do that 3 times, and that's 3 shield triggers in between each main gun. So when she fires a main gun, she's going to generate the shield at 5 seconds. It's going to last to 7 seconds, and then at 8.5 seconds, she's going to get another shield that's going to last another 2 seconds to 10.5 seconds. Then she's going to wait another 1.5 1.5 seconds and trigger another shield. And remember, after each of these shields, she's going to fire a special barrage shell when they expire or, get broken, and those count towards stacks. So theoretically, because it can stack 3 times, the first skill can trigger after the first launch, right? If you fire with like a high performance fire control radar and you fire at like the 15-second mark and then you wait the 5 seconds and then you do the 3 triggers afterward, you could theoretically trigger that combo mark somewhere in that like 25-second mark, which is interesting. And if you don't, that's fine because you'll trigger it automatically in the 30-second mark. Very, very interesting ship. Very solid barrage ship. I really like the design they have going here with this gunslinging sort of thing going on. She's pretty tanky. She's going to defend your Vanguard. She's not a UR. Let's not get that excited about that. But as far as an SR unique ship, Indiana is very exciting. And if you're a new player, this is a good option to pick up. Of course, you obviously have to be cognizant of what events are around us. But this is a cool ship. I actually like this ship. All right, moving on. Let's move on to Baltimore's sister, USS Pittsburgh, an SR heavy cruiser. And she does have more health, which is great, but she's light armor? Like, where happened to medium armor? Okay, so not going to have a lot of EHP there. I mean, she does have a good health pool, but her, evasion and light armor are not going to really help her there. And she definitely looks like a downgrade in terms of offensive stats from her sisters, specifically Baltimore. So I'm curious what's going on here. Let's move on to the skills. Skill number 1, every 10 seconds after the start of the battle, she's going to trigger a special barrage. Enemies hit by the barrage are burned. Then, when the battleship or battlecruiser or aviation battleship fires their main gun, she's going to inflict armor break on all burning enemies for 6 seconds. And that can be burning enemies from her barrage that triggers at the 10-second mark, which is perfect lining up for the battleships, or any other burning. Yeah, there's a lot of burning that you could have. That's awesome. Armor break on all burning enemies. If you fill the whole map with burning, you can just give armor break. Guaranteed. They just have to be burning whenever you launch that battleship gun, which is awesome. Additionally, the burn is going to do an extra 72 HP of damage per second for 6 seconds when you launch that. And it is only the flagship battleship, so it's not like you're going to be using it every time a battleship fires. But the flagship is an interesting one, so you do need to put a battleship with her. This is really cool, and I think there's a lot of applications here, and instantly kind of makes me forget about some of those stat decreases that we saw up front, because this is a lot of utility, just guaranteeing that if you put a battleship flagship and you know when it's going to launch, and you know, like, okay, we're launching it at the 15-second mark or whatever, and you're guaranteeing armor break on everything that's burning, and you just have to figure out ways to get burning. She brings burn to the table in this skill already, and there are plenty of other ways to bring burn. Of course, she also has, a main gun +1 on her heavy cruiser gun, as well as a auxiliary gun secondary, so a lot of options for burn from just regular shots, and that doesn't even mean the other 5 ships in the fleet can't put some work towards that. I'm excited about this. This is finally upgrading burn. Burn has, historically gotten worse as we power creep, and this definitely makes it better, and I'm excited because it basically just turns burn into armor creep. Okay, anyway, I talked about burn and armor break and all those things. Move on to skill number 2. She gets plus 15% evasion stat. She's going to need it, especially with that light armor. Great, we like to see it. She's also going to get a special anti-air gun weapon, so that's going to make her a little bit more tanky as far as, defending against those airstrikes. And, I crapped on her for having light armor, but that will be helpful against, bombers and things like that. When this ship's HP drops below 30%, she's going to generate a barrier that can absorb up to 3% of her max HP for only 5 seconds. It only triggers once per battle. If the barrier breaks, she's going to heal herself 6%. If it expires, she's going to get a permanent boost to her firepower and anti-air by 15%. Okay, it makes her a little bit more tanky. That 30% mark is a little bit low, but in some of the late game content where you're kind of stretching her survivability, it could be very useful. It gives her the heal, gives her some stat boosts if you can't make utilization of that heal. So it's good. It's going to help with her EHP, and I'm really excited about that first skill. Pittsburgh is, I'm going to say, above expectations here. I'm not going to say I love it, but I like There's that, I don't know. I really want to abuse that first skill. I think you can. I'm excited. 2 for 2, really, in design at least. All right, let's move on to the last SR of this event, the light cruiser USS Fargo. I'm a little bit nervous because I'm most excited for her due to her design, and I already like the other 2 SRs, so I'm just hoping she's not a dud. So unlike the other 2 ships, she's her own class, so nothing to really compare to her sisters or something like that. But for her light cruiser stats, they aren't bad. If we were to look at her stats and what she's most similar to, it's going to be Houston 2 or Montpelier. These are decently tanky ships that are firepower based with a main gun +1 and an auxiliary gun. Not really bad company to be having when we're talking about stats, although something like Montpelier is used for her utility and her skills, so let's look at the skills of Fargo. Skill number 1, she's going to get a self -15% damage taken, and that, along with her high anti-air and decent HP, I think is going to give her the highest EHP of any of the ships we've seen so far. Also, every 20 seconds, she's going to summon a drone that drops cargo boxes on the battlefield, and each cargo box lasts for 15 seconds. So she's just going to drop these cargo boxes. So drones are going to come out and they're going to be like, here, we're dropping this. And what is it going to do? If the Vanguard fleet enters the range of a cargo box, hopefully it's big, because if you're, autoing, you kind of want them to actually hit it eventually. You're going to consume the cargo box and heal the lowest HP Vanguard fleet ships 2% of their max HP. This is really cool. It almost reminds me of like Serena in Blue Archive, where you're dropping these boxes and you have to run to them. And I really like the mechanic here, although 2% is not a lot, and it's only going to have the Vanguard, and it's only going to be the lowest HP, not all of them. And they could just miss it. Like they could just, if you're auto moding and they just don't ever go to the cargo, that could be there. So as far as like an effective heal, not like something that's like, oh, this is a great heal, but it is interesting. This is like a first of its kind type of skill, and I really do like it. I hope that they play with this type of mechanic again in the future, kind of dropping these gifts from the sky. I like it, especially since it's summoning a drone. Skill number 2, she's going to get a firepower and hit stat boost by 15%. Love it. We like to see those, especially when we're talking about a ship that has basically 3 guns that it's firing. Every 15 seconds, there's a 70% chance to trigger a special barrage. Great, we like barrages. 70% not guaranteed, but it does add an extra set of damage that we can expect over the long run. And finally, while this ship is afloat, the fleet's flagship is going to get 6% firepower and aviation and -5% damage taken. So it's a flagship booster. Love that. So this actually provides that utility we were talking about. I do like this ship. We have a heal, we have a boost to the flagship, and it is a decent body. I think not necessarily something we're going to want to give up. I think, when you're talking about something that's a support ship or utility ship, you want it to be like game breaking. I don't see anything here that's game breaking. I think they're all kind of nice to haves. And, sometimes it's like, is it worth giving up, some of these amazing damage dealers, especially these UR damage dealers, to go get a Vanguard ship that has some nice to have buffs? I don't think so. I think Fargo is probably the worst of the SRs in this event. And at the same time, I'm still decently excited for her just because she's very unique in the way that she functions with that drone. And like the flagship is something I can be excited about. Like it's like not like over the moon excitement, but I can be excited about that flagship buff. It has a damage decrease and it has a flagship boost. Overall, Fargo looks good too. She's also the free version of this event. You can obtain her in the shop as well as a drop, so she should be easily to obtain. You don't have to worry about her in the gacha. If you get her, nice, but you don't have to worry about it. Overall, at first glance though, I think I like all of the SRs. We'll talk more specifically about, overview once I get through the elites, but that's where I'm leaning right now. So let's move on to the first elite, which is the destroyer USS Bell at Fletcher class. We got a lot of these to get through. Stat-wise, she's bad. It's an elite Fletcher class destroyer. Let's move on to skills. When another ship in the fleet takes damage, interesting, 30% chance to increase this ship's firepower, anti-air stat, torpedo stat by 5%. That stacks 5 times, so up to a 25% boost. And 30% seems low, but it's anytime that there takes a damage. Doesn't look like there's an excessive cooldown here, so 5 instances of damage is not very hard. Of course, 30%, is actually pretty high when you're considering that. So you can get to those stacks pretty high. Of course, she has terrible stats, so boosting them slightly is not going to make a huge difference, but, that's a good skill on like any other SR ship. For every plane shot down in the Vanguard's AA circle, she's going to take minus 2% damage taken. That stacks 4 times for a maximum of 8% damage reduction. Great. We like damage reduction. It's not a lot though, considering you're going to have to shoot down like 4 planes, and she's not like particularly an airplane ship. Like 182 anti-air stat is pretty awful. Okay, moving on to skill number 2. At the start of the battle, and with a 30% chance to deploy again every 15 seconds, trigger a smoke screen. So you do get a preload smoke screen. That's nice. 30% chance though for a smoke screen trigger is pretty low. I do like that every 15 seconds. That's a really good timer, but man, you cannot rely on it at all. It is just pretty much a standard smoke screen, except the fact it also increases all of your Vanguard fleet torpedo stat by 15% for 10 seconds. So that's a really cool buff there. 30% is really too low for me to get excited here, but it is a smoke screen that gives you a torpedo buff. So that is something kind of special and unique. This ship's not very good. It's like, I don't know, they tried. It's not like complete garbage. You can try and use it if you really like it. It has its uses. It's very middle of the road. Finally, let's talk about the accumulation reward, which is an elite submarine, the USS Herring. I know some people were excited that her skin gives her fishnet stockings, and she is a quote fish, a herring. Anyway, she is a submarine with low stats. Submarines very often scale off of their rarity for their stats, and she's no different. Her elite base stats are not too much to write home about. Let's move on to skills. Skill number 1, she's going to get a 10% boost to her torpedo stat, 10% damage dealt to all enemy destroyers and transport ships. Those are some of the worst class hulls that you could have picked here. When this ship enters battle, 80% chance to heal a random surface fleet by 8% of their max HP. The ship who's healed also gains 5% evasion and 3 speed for 20 seconds. Really cool. This is a heal and a speed increase, and this automatically starts ringing alarm bells like, oh, maybe we give up all of that DPS from the submarine fleet in order to get a heal on command, basically, because you can summon her whenever, and you know, it gives you a speed boost, evasion boost. Like, I really like that, except it's 80% chance. So it's not really on command. It's like on command until it isn't. You're going to spend the oil and you're going to hope that you did it. I don't know. And you guys can tell me in the comments, but I feel like the difference between 80 and 100% is so big here, because just the off chance you spend all the oil and the heal just doesn't happen, you're going to be really sad. So yeah, I don't know. Really interesting. I like this where they're moving to submarines doing something other than just being a DPS stick, you know, adding that. So I like this skill a lot, actually, except that it just is not always going to go off. That's the problem. I like the skill. It's just not going to go off 100% of the time. Skill number 2, when she surfaces, she's going to trigger a torpedo barrage. That's pretty standard, and the 70% chance to trigger a special main gun barrage, so 2 barrages. And for some reason, they felt the need to put that if she fires the main gun barrage, she's going to leave the fight 1 second earlier. That's gotta be like something related to history, right? Am I like missing something? There's no reason that needs to be in there unless there's some sort of historical thing that I'm not like thinking of. If you know what it is, let me know in the comments, because like, why do we care that it leaves 1 second earlier? All right, that is all of the new ships. Not totally the event though. We do have one equipment that you can pick up in the shop, so let's look at that before we do our full conclusion. So this equipment is going to be the Fargo drone, so on theme with that particular ship. It's going to give 25 to 28 firepower, 20 to 26 anti-air stat. And while that doesn't look that exciting on the basis here, if we look at who it's equipable by, it is equipable by destroyers who routinely don't have great access to firepower equipment in the auxiliary slot, especially those destroyers that get that 30% auxiliary slot stat boost. So for them, this is nice because a lot of people were having to use that special equipment from the Rika collab to get, you know, firepower on your destroyers. So now we have this item that will be able to do that. So that's actually kind of useful in its case where you need a firepower destroyer. Also, 15 seconds after the battle starts, it's going to launch a high-speed drone. That's on theme with Fargo in general, so that's really cool. Overall, you know, this is going to be a pretty free item to pick up, so I don't really have to tell you to pick it up, but you should pick it up. You don't want to miss out on this, especially in the case you're going to be in the future and you're like, oh, I need firepower to put on my destroyer. Here you go. Here's an option. Really easy. All right, that is all the new content that I have for this update. It looks exciting to me. I'm actually very excited with what they did with EN Anniversary here. They gave us a UR effectively through a retrofit. They gave us a new event that's USS based. It's an SR event because we have a UR event in a month. Be careful about that. And I think they hit it on the nail. I think all these ships have really unique skills. I think there are utility that I can see. I can see them in late game content too. If you're a new player that's joining like this week, this is not a bad event to get started on. Always caution, if you're, right around that 400 cube mark or you're below it, you got to be very careful, as we might get a absolute bomb of an event for the Japanese anniversary, which is always going to be bigger than EN anniversary. Sorry, they make 40% of the revenue. We make 15% of the revenue. So, the math there is always going to be there. But I'm very excited that this is real because, 3 years ago, EN events for the anniversary were just nothing. Like, they gave nothing really. So I'm excited about that. And we got all the same rewards that China got for their anniversary, which is why everything's based on 7 instead of 6, because they had their 7th anniversary even though we're on our 6th, but we have exact equal output rate. Love to see that. And yeah, I don't know. I was pleasantly surprised with what happened in Indiana. I think she, beat my expectations. I think Pittsburgh, I'm just waiting to abuse Pittsburgh. I'm super excited about that. I'm not trying to say that she's good, but, that burn is a really cool skill. And Fargo has like a cool skill too. Fargo's probably the worst of the SRs she's actually probably got the highest EHP of the SRs, at least for the Vanguard ships. Yeah, I don't know. They're all exciting. Even Belle is like, if you really like Belle and you want to use her, she's actually somewhat usable for an elite. Like, she's not one of those like trash, you can't use her, whatever, collection only. She's actually something you could theoretically try and use. Of course, there's 100 other ships that are better, but waifu over meta sometimes, right? So and even the submarine brought something to the table, a brand new kind of, you're increasing your speed and your evasion of your Vanguard fleet by launching your submarine fleet. I really like that. I obviously complained about its trigger chance. No one wants to spend oil to learn that their skill didn't even trigger. So, whatever, but that's a good step in the direction. I'm actually excited for this event. And I say that with, the EN anniversary has oftentimes been a disappointment. I don't think it is a disappointment. You guys let me know in the comments what you guys think, because, that's obviously my opinion, but I don't think this was a disappointment. I think they delivered. And obviously, take that in the context, there's going to be a UR event in a month, and that's going to probably be more exciting for a whole host of different reasons. But as far as getting an EN anniversary done, I thought, a lot of things were great. I even thought the live stream was really good. The animations were good. We got a song from Amelie. Like, there's exciting things there. I think they made that live stream a little bit too short even. Like, they flew through it faster than I wanted. Like, I sat there and I was like, I want that to be longer, which is weird for Azur Lane, because when they have like 8 to 16 hour anniversary streams in Japan, I'm usually like, okay, did this really need to be that long? Did this need to be 2 days? No, but this one was actually so short. I was like, wow, that's like almost too short, whatever. So anyway, I'm excited. I hope you guys are too. Thank you guys for watching. Take care. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.